Welcome back, trainers. This time we're fresh from Gdansk, the amber capital of Europe and Pokemon's choice for the third regional championship on the European circuit. We'll break down everything that went on in the TCG Masters event, who came out on top, which decks made an impact, and the main highlights you need to know. In our first video of the channel, we covered the results of the Lille Regional Championships, where Regidrago V-Star dominated the tournament with 4 in the asymmetric top cut, including a Regidrago V-Star perfectly piloted by the well-deserved winner in James Cox. 3 other Regidragos actually stood in the way en route to the final in Nina, Kaiwen and Alberto, but more on him later, before crushing a Dragapult in the final piloted by Clement Courbois. Raging Bolt for the 3rd time in a row was the most played deck in day 1, but came crashing down to reality with a terrible conversion into day 2. This opened up a clear path for decks like Lugia V-Star and Regidrago V-Star to take the spotlight in the Stellar Crown format, as they shot up to the 1st and 2nd most represented decks in day 2. With only 2 weeks separating the 2 European regionals Lille and Gdansk, we posed 3 major key questions. Will Regidrago V-Star become even more popular heading into Gdansk following its recent win? Will Raging Bolt finally fall off from being the most played deck in day 1? And will a non-European win another European regional for the 3rd time in a row? Heading into the Gdansk Regional Championships, even more players had entered the battlefield compared to the most recent in Lille, 1,372 master players battling it out to try and take the crown at the Amber Expo. This event was covered by the caster quadruple of Amy Wosley, Joe Bernard, yours truly, and debutant caster and finally someone who's made day 2, Jesper Eriksson. This was a caster group consisting of IC and Worlds casters, and of course a former world champion to guide us through. The Gdansk meta breakdown from day 1 had showed us that Raging Bolt quickly squashed any notion of falling from the very top of that day 1 graphic. 15% of all of the Gdansk regional players playing the deck that has a relatively high level of consistency, and also likely in response to the Lille results where Regidrago, a favourable matchup for Raging Bolt, had just taken it down. Lugia V-Star was the only other deck above 10%, with the rest falling between 6 to 8. The other top decks were as expected: Lugia V-Star, Regidrago V-Star, Charizard, Dragapult, Palkia, and just falling off that first day 1 graphic to Terrapagos EX. Other interesting decks to note, Gardevoir and Bennett Gardevoir, already bucketed together, had also made an appearance in the best of the rest graphic in day 1. This is especially likely due to the origins of Bennett archetype from Poland. We also saw other control archetypes like Snorlax and Iron Thorns sneaking into the meta. Heading into the meta breakdown for day 2 of the Gdansk Regional Championships is where we start to see some really interesting shifts in deck representation. Raging Bolt actually fell again, and despite opportunities to call it Raging Flop, was still the 2nd most represented deck with 12%. But looking at a slightly different angle, it was only that 7% of all Raging Bolt players had obtained the 18 match points to head into day 2, and that's only a small increase from Lille. Terrapagos EX, however, in the hands of some very high level players, found itself sitting at the very top of the tree with 14% representation in day 2. The 2nd time it has done so, with the 1st in Dortmund at the very start of the format. This is an impressive almost 20% of Terrapagos players from day 1 who qualified into making day 2. Regidrago saw a small uptick in representation, joint 3rd with Lugia in fact, which just dropped. And looking at some of the players that were piloting the deck, there were some very familiar names once again. Other interesting things to note, the combination of Gardevoir and Bennett Gardevoir made the graphic at 9%. And of course, the increase in Iron Thorns EX representation cannot be missed either. Harkening back to the Worlds format, the Big 3 or even Big 4 found themselves at the mercy of the self-proclaimed Just Big Me in Iron Thorns EX, which of course took down the World Championship title. The best of the rest graphics showed the stage 2 decks Charizard and Dragapult really struggling. Combined, only 8 players had made it into day 2 out of 198 altogether from day 1, which I think we have found our biggest loser here. The only other deck which had its own disappearing act was the deck that was discarded by Stefan Ivanov for this Gdansk Regional Championships, and that was Palkia Dustwa, no longer appearing at all on either graphic. 6 brave Lost Zone players following Regidrago's Lille victory found a path to day 2, and control archetypes continue to dodge and weave the decks they want to avoid. So let's dive right into the results of the actual tournament itself. Gdansk marked the first European regional this season with a clean top 8 cut, with a score threshold of 30 match points making it in. And, spoiler alert, for the first time no non-European players made it to the top cut in a European regional. Our top 8 included 1 Terrapagos EX, 2 Regidrago V-Stars, 2 Bennett Gardevoirs, 2 Iron Fawns and 1 Snorlax. A few interesting callouts outside of the top 8, 3 standard Gardevoir EX decks were in top 16, showing a true resurgence of the deck in the right hands, and that was a very similar case with 2 Lost Zone enjoyers as well in the top 16. Caleb Rogerson, over from the US, had just fallen short of being yet another one to try and take away another EU crown. In the end, however, it was Alberto Conti's time to shine, redeeming himself from the disappointment of falling in the Lille Regional Championships to James Cox in top 4. This time, Alberto came again with the same 59 cards as the Lille Regional Championships and took it 2 steps further. After a tense win-and-in stream match against Caleb Rogerson, Alberto entered the top 8 in back-to-back tournaments. In top 8, Alberto had overcome one of those Iron Fawns that had made it in. Before top 4, a mirror match with Daniel Magda ensued. Back and forth trades occurred until small decisions were made, gifting Alberto the opportunity he needed to make the final and stand against one of the greatest players to grace this game in Tord Reklev, who had already overcome a former world champion in Magnus in the top 4. A quick shout out that the top 4 is a worthy top 4 in almost any level of competition. We had a former world champion, a world's finalist and multi-international championship winner, an international championship finalist and first year master, and arguably one of the most consistent players in Europe since playing the trading card game post-COVID. The final went down to the wire, taking the full time allocated, but with some tremendous plays and Lady Luck falling the right way, Alberto was able to take down his first ever regional championships, cementing his current spot as the #1 player in Europe on championship points, and of course, taking home the invite to the World Championships in Anaheim, California. Well, what's next, ladies and gentlemen? The first of the big prize events is looming large. The Latin America International Championships in Sao Paulo, Brazil will be the final stop of this Stellar Crown format. Just the Buenos Aires special event stands in the way before players descend to Brazil's cultural center. Last season's LAIC saw a diverse pool of international players in top 8, and a mostly diverse meta, very similar to what it is now, which sparks many more questions for the remainder of this format. How will our players react to the results of the Gdansk Regional Championships and the Buenos Aires special event? Are there still opportunities to innovate in this format with decks like Gouging Fire or Palkia Terrapagos with 4 Jet Energy, Illumise and Volbeat, or maybe even the Rotomless Snorlax control deck? And will we see a player obtain their second automatic invite to Worlds with 4 opportunities at the International Championships? My beady little eyes will be fixated to see how it goes down at LAIC, where we'll often see the best of the best turn up. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. Please let me know in the comments what you thought of the Gdansk Regional Championships and also of this breakdown and summary. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe buttons if you enjoyed the video, as this gives me a little bit more confidence that what I'm doing is all worth it. Peace.